Hello everybody. I'm going to go over chapter 5. A couple of things showed up in some questions that I got via email. I just wanted to answer a few questions and give you some insight on chapter 5. So why does chapter 5 regulate building height, area, and stories? Well, we know that it's to ensure safety based on the construction type, what it's being built with. Occupancy classification, who's going to be staying or living in the building, or how they're going to use the building, and what type of fire protection system do they have. So, taking a look at this picture, you ever wonder why some buildings are taller than others? Or why they have larger floor areas? So chapter 5 is actually the part that regulates building height, floor areas, and number of stories. The reason they do that, they start with fire protection, right? Your ability to escape and the ability for fire departments and safety equipment to actually get to you in the case of an emergency. So more fire resistant construction types are 1 and 2. Which allow for greater height and floor areas, and less resistant types are 3, 4, and 5. These regulations, they designed them to keep people safe, and to help prevent buildings from being too large or too tall for their construction type and fire protection systems. You see this in table 504.3, which actually reflects heights in feet. 504.4 discusses stories or indicates stories, and 506.2 floor area. These provide the maximum limits based on occupancy and construction type. So you got a type A, a type B, a type C buildings. So for examples, modern skyscrapers, as you can see here in the video, large shopping malls, major office complexes. Type B, mid-rise, right? Moderate safety requirements, fire safety requirements, which include schools, small to medium-sized office buildings, residential buildings up to a certain height. And we're not going to get into that. If you're interested in that, the IRC building codes would actually reflect that. And then the type C, low-rise buildings. These have minimal fire safety requirements, single-family homes, small shops, and small office buildings, right? So, as you can see in this picture right here, there's a distinguish between what is a floor slash story and what is not a story. So, building heights is measured in feet from the grade plane height, while the number of stories refers to the floors above grade. Two important measurements: from the ground to the roof height, number of stories based on level. But just keep in mind that a basement does not count, nor does that stairway count for roof access. All right. So, building heights, an allowable height and area depending on 3 factors, right? Construction type, more fire-resistant materials allow for taller and larger buildings. Occupancy type, a hospital, for example, has different limits than a warehouse. And fire protection features, automatic sprinklers can increase the height and floor area limits. Here's an example of they actually lit a fire in 2 of these little container boxes, one with a fire suppression system, one without. You can see the results there. You can see also in the high-rise that even with the fire suppression system, it could not mitigate the fire, and it actually creeped from floor to floor. So, what happens if a building exceeds these limits? If a building exceeded these allowable area or heights, right, changes got to be made, right? You have to actually resubmit the plans. You could also do remodels, right, like using additional firewalls, changing the construction type, or adding fire protection features, right? So here's a good caricature, right? But we're building a 2-story house. It's exceeded the maximum building height, so they're just cutting off the roof. And then here's a downward view. This one actually depicts more of allowable space if you have more frontage to a building, right? If you take these area views. So also another part of chapter 5 that they discussed. So if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to shoot me out an email. Thanks, everybody.